Hi everyone, Agnes here, and I have got a very special interview for you today. I've got T with me, and I just read out her success story number 93 not long ago, within the last week. So she has kindly said she would come and talk to you a little bit more about her journey. So welcome, T.
Hello. Hi, Agnes. How are you?
I'm good. Good to hear you and see you. And I'm going to really enjoy this success story as much as the viewers, because your story was so well written and so thorough that I am thrilled that you've come on. So this is obviously an SP success story. We are going to go back as far as you want to go back, as in when you were struggling, when things weren't working, and then work along the timeline. So where would you like to start in terms of pre-manifesting, pre-self-love?
Okay. So I'm actually going to start at the beginning. And I think because I just for, Agnes and I talked about this, I think just for the sake of everybody, I thought the best thing for me would be to do this anonymously, because I think now I can then actually share a little bit more detail and give you guys a little bit more context around what I went through. So I'm going to share from the beginning, because I think that's like super important, because I was not in the place where I am now. And I think that understanding the context of what it's like to go through the full process of like having lost yourself and then finding yourself again is going to be really important. So, so my success story started back in, I think it was 2016, I had said. So I was with another person. That relationship ended. And then I ended up going out and meeting my SP on our first date for the first time. We hit it off immediately. And I just remember thinking, like, this guy is so smart. Like, we had so much in common and I was into him, but I do also remember that I was still a little bit distracted by my previous relationship, that I didn't actually fully go like all in with him in the very beginning. Like, I felt like, okay, like I'm going to get to know this guy and start, start dating and see where that goes. So, eventually what happened is we started dating more seriously. And I kind of realized I was at this point where I started to fall for him. And for me, that's the problem, because as soon as I noticed like a pattern in myself later on, as soon as I start to fall for somebody, my problem is that I immediately start to lose my sense of self. And that happened. I didn't know this back then, but that happened because I was raised to become so aware and so taught to become conscious of like the 3D. And yes, I'm sorry. Can you hold on 1 second? My dog is, Reka, don't eat that, please. Okay. Can you go lay down? Okay. So, I realized that like when I really started to like him, that I had a problem. I didn't understand it yet, but I was like in this place where I started to feel like into him. So I started to pull back, because I knew that if I let myself go fully with him, that I was not going to be able to handle it. And I think I kind of knew that subconsciously, which is why I pulled back. And I realized later on that made, that put me in this position of like having a very unstable, I had a very unstable attachment style. And it was because of my childhood. So I had this anxious, but then also avoidant attachment style, because I basically felt like if I got close to him and I let my guard down, he was going to let me down. Like something was going to go wrong, because as a child, when I was growing up, I never received the kind of love that I needed from my parents. And it's more my mother, but like, it's not to judge her. I only say that for context, because she went through the same thing too. Like, she's only teaching me what she's experiencing. So, I felt like as a child, like I had to be perfect. I had to do everything right. And I had to earn love. Like I kept trying to earn love by doing and accomplishing things. So, and I still never got the love that I needed. So I never figured out how to get it. No, she couldn't teach me. Like she couldn't teach me self-love. And that was the whole problem of everything. Like that literally was the key to like everything, because it caused me to be anxious. It caused me to be avoidant. Because I was not giving myself the one thing that I actually needed, which was the security and stability that only one person can give you, and that's you. And since I didn't learn that as a child, I realized it was my responsibility to give that to myself. And I, at first, was very resentful of that. I had anger issues that I had to work through with my mom. I resented that she didn't know to teach me that. And then I had to realize, wait, no, you have to have compassion for her, because she's only teaching me what she knows. So like, she's not in a position where she even knows how to love herself in the way that she deserves. So that almost made me feel like, okay, I owe this not only to myself, but to like the future world and, you know, my family to learn how to do this for myself. But I will say, like in the beginning, I was not a happy camper. I was very resentful of doing all of this work. And this is sort of like where I found Agnes, because, or actually, no, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, because I'm not going into the story. So let me get a little bit back into the story. But so we were dating. So we were together. We got into a relationship, but the relationship like had issues from the beginning. We didn't have trust issues, but I just felt like we couldn't go deep and become vulnerable with each other. Like I was not allowing myself to let go. He would see that and he would just like not understand like why I was being so distant. He would try to get me to like come see him all the time and spend time with him and like fully commit to the relationship. And I couldn't trust that, because if I did, I knew it wouldn't have worked out at that time, because I knew that my only power was in kind of playing the game on my end of avoiding him, because that kept him interested instead of fully committing to the love that I really actually truly in my heart wanted. So we actually still managed to date for like almost 2 full years. Like we were in a committed relationship. There was no cheating, which was it was kind of one of the reasons why I felt like I would manifest him back, because I knew in my heart, like he was a really good person. And he genuinely loved me. So when we got to the place where things started to fall apart, I noticed like so many things were falling apart in my life. Like I was dealing with health issues. He was he had this business that he was building, and he was focusing on that. And we just both had so many like really intense things going on at the same exact time. And that could have all worked out if I had a good self-concept, but I just did not feel worthy of being loved. And so when I was sick, when I was dealing with all the stuff, I had this like, woe is me victim attitude, because I felt like I do not understand why all of this stuff is happening to me. I felt powerless to fix it. And so I just relied on him in such a like needy way, because I thought he was my source of the love that I desired and the support that I needed, because I felt like he owed it to me. He's my boyfriend. Like he should be there for me. He should be by my side. Like when I'm sick and like I was hospitalized, and he was there for me. Like he came and he was there for me, but I never felt that that was enough, because it was coming from him. It wasn't coming from me. Like the love that he was giving me could never be enough, because I didn't feel it inside of myself. And at that time, I was so ignorant to that, because I just felt like my family had taught me that love comes from outside of you, you know? And it was again, just like all of these, like this perfect storm, just leading up to this crescendo of he finally got to this place where he had to move away for his business being to take it to the next level. And I remember when he moved, my mom was like, "Oh, you know, are you going to move out there with him?" And I hit this point where I was like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what is going to happen here. Like, I didn't know what way was up. Like, there was no like major red flag going on in the relationship at that point, but it was still just that level of like not depth in love with each other, not being vulnerable and safe with each other. And so when he did go out there, we had these like little fights and things that just sort of kept putting wedges in the relationship more. And since we didn't have that strong foundation, it kind of just, it crumbled. And he broke up with me, and I was devastated, obviously. Like, we all go through that. Everybody that kind of comes to this community that's trying to manifest a person knows that feeling. And I know it so well, because I was the type of person that, as much as I was avoidant, I was anxious too. And all I wanted was love. So like, knowing that this man loved me, and knowing that this man genuinely, I mean, he was telling me when we were together that he wanted to marry me at the beginning of our relationship. He knew he wanted to marry me. And to know that somebody can genuinely love you and want to marry you and still end things with you, it's like, it was like the worst pain of my entire life. Like, I've never felt anything like that in my life. So, that was just when the breakup happened. And then, there was still this in and out of hot and cold after that. So he broke things off. I was devastated. I tried on that conversation when he broke things off, I tried to reason with him and say, look, like, we love each other. Like, let's try to make things work. And he just couldn't do it. So at that point, I actually did, in the physical world, I stopped. I knew enough to not contact him. I knew enough to not reach out, but my energy was still chasing him. So like, it didn't matter what I did. I still was energetically needing him. So I felt like that, I just had to step away, and he would come back and reach out to me when he was coming back to where I was in the country, and he would see me. And I will never forget this one point when he came back, and he was at his house and I came over, and I remember bringing over a couple of bottles of wine. And I realized, like, when I did that, so I did it because I knew he liked wine and I did too. And when we would drink, it was easy, because like, it helped reduce both of our fears and inhibitions a bit, to like kind of talk a little bit more in depth, and just like, both of us let our guard down. And it wasn't about like the drinking as much as I thought that, like, if I did that and he became a little bit more, like relaxed in the conversation, that like he would come back to, like, it was all of these like crazy manipulative things that I was trying to do subconsciously. Cause I didn't realize at that time, like, actively, that I was doing it, but I knew, I was like, oh, if I do this, like, he'll, he'll like open back up to me, and like, we can reconnect, and like, we'll, get back together. And every single thing that I did backfired. And this was like, dating tactics that like I saw online, like, how to get your ex back by, being hot and cold to them, and like trying to, I don't even remember half the tactics, but I just remember that I was trying to do things to get him back in the physical world, and trying to manipulate the situation. And at that point, there was a third party in the situation, and I knew it because he was honest with me about it. And I knew also, though, that he was still in love with me. And so I was just fighting so hard to like get him to pay attention to me. And I did like, every single thing that I could possibly do in the 3D, except for the one thing that I found out later would actually work. And unfortunately, every single thing backfired. And the point when he, moved back to the side of the country fully, where he was working and building his business, was the point where, ironically, we did start to actually connect more in a deeper way, but there was still that third party in the situation. And I'm going to tell this because, I just think it's important to the story. There was a point where he contacted me, and we were talking every day. And then all of a sudden he went dark, and I was like, oh my God, what happened? And I knew something bad had happened, but I didn't know what it was. And I found out after, because I gave him a couple of days and I finally just texted him. I was like, look, I know something's wrong. And he wrote me back and he was like, something is wrong. Like something did happen. And I was like, well, do you want to talk? Can we talk about it? And he's like, I'm still in shock, but, yeah, like, so we talked and he told me what it was. And what it was is that he accidentally got the person that he had been kind of dating / hooking up with while we were not together pregnant. And at that point, that was like for me, the breaking point, because I just hit like this wall of like, oh my God, this is like a real thing. And I could not wrap my head around any of this at that time, because I was just like, I lost him. I thought immediately, like, I lost him forever. Like, this is it. Like, there's no coming back from this. And at that point, circumstances to me, they mattered, because I was like, how could this ever work? Like, how could I ever get and how could this be fixed? Like, so we continued to talk through that time. He was like, you're my best friend. He was struggling. He was devastated, because he and this person, he knew he didn't want to be with that person, but he's a good man. And I had a story about him too, so he told me, and I'll just tell this really quickly. Like, his childhood was rough. Like, his parents divorced. He had problems with, being offered love as a child himself. And he is the type of man. And I held this belief and thank God I do, because, I want him to be that way. I want him to be that type of man in the world, and I held this belief that he would, when I found out about what happened, that he would be there for his child. And, we talk about in this community, like, stories, like the story that you write for yourself is what creates, and it's true. But in that case, as much as I wanted him to walk away from everything. My heart was like, I want you to leave that whole situation, come back to me. But then I also realized, I was like, is that the man that if I got back together with, did I want to marry that man that would walk away from his responsibility? So it was just like, it was just a lot. That's why I say, like, I wanted to share this story, because I just want people to understand that, like, I've been through it. Like, I've been through the worst that you could possibly experience, what you could think of as the possible worst. Third party, baby, moving entirely away from me to a point where, like, we couldn't, like, there was nothing close or remotely to show that, like, this could ever work. And at this point, I started hitting this wall of, like, I can't do this anymore. Like, cause he kept relying on me for, like, his, what he was dealing with this whole trauma with this person and what she was going through. And so he was leaning on me, and I was like, this is just too much for me. So I ejected. I was like, I'm out. I can't do this. And it broke my heart, but I bailed, and I was like, I can't talk to you anymore. You can't talk to me anymore. And that's that. And, I started really, like, I had found, and yes, at this point, because I was searching dating coaches and you came up, but I was still in such a bad place that I was still like, I need to, I was like, I need to figure out how to make this work easily. And Agnes was talking all about self-love, and I had no idea what this even meant at this time. So the last time he kind of came back was, in the winter time, and he wrote to me that how sorry he was for everything. He was devastated that, like, he had done this to me, and he felt like he didn't know what to do, and he couldn't, even handle his own life at this time. Like, so I actually, when he said he was sorry, that actually gave me, like, a little bit of hope, because I realized, like, he came back to me on his own. He realized what he did, but, I still hadn't worked on myself. So, like, I had felt like crap. And, So I started getting into LOA because of Agnes. So thank you for that. And you really, you just had this like way about teaching that was so authentic and non-manipulative that the deeper part of me resonated with it so much. And so I realized like, okay, what she's teaching, it makes sense. Everything that she's teaching about Neville makes sense. And I knew I needed to go all in on myself, but I had this resistance to doing it. And I realized it later. And I think one of the big reasons why people have resistance to doing self-love work is because they know how painful it's going to be. Maybe not consciously. You know how painful it's going to be because you've been neglecting that part of yourself for so long. And I promise you guys, I tried to do every other LOA. Like I looked up tons of LOA coaches. Like I looked up everybody and I looked up what they were teaching. And I tried to do every method that you could possibly think of doing to get him to come back and grovel for me and come to me. And I wanted that. I wanted him to come back and like try to win me over instead of loving myself and instead of giving myself the thing that I needed, because I thought that that was going to fulfill me. Like I thought that him coming back and saying, like throwing it down, like, I love you, I choose you, I want you. I thought that that would give me the fulfillment that I wanted and needed. And it took me a good 2 years before I actually realized that none of that would have fulfilled me. And the reason why, and I'm going to tell you like the reason why it took me so long. And it's because number one, I rejected loving myself because I was terrified. And I had a very, very challenging story that I felt like I had to overcome because I did not believe that I was worthy of love just for being me. And so as soon as things started to unravel, like in my life, like with my person and my self-concept, like I just, with my person, like I had a terrible self-concept. And so I was using this time to really try to understand what was going on with me and like what the whole nature of the world was. And so when I studied Agnes's like self-love methods, when I started doing them, I had major resistance. Like I was waking up in the middle of the night. I was having nightmares. I was having like panic attacks during the day, because when I started to talk about, I love you and I want to love you, as in loving myself, I was not able to accept it. So my body was in this complete state of like dysregulation and trauma. And I felt like it was never going to change. Like I was on calls with Agnes. I booked calls with Agnes and I was on these calls with her and I would cry on the phone with her, on the screen with her, because she was trying to teach me what I needed to do. And I couldn't even tell myself that I loved myself. Like I would cry saying I loved myself because I just didn't feel like I loved myself at all. Like I could not comprehend a feeling within me that would feel full enough to take away the emptiness that I felt within myself. And so the work really was not, it wasn't a like one and done kind of thing for me. It took me a long time to figure out what would actually work for me, because again, I just took my mind was so and it was my ego. Like it was so set on getting this person back by just doing affirmations of like, he loves me, he's obsessed with me, he wants me, and wanting that reflected back instead of realizing and like really understanding the concept of everyone is you pushed out, which is you're going to get reflected back what you have within you because you are creating your world. And so I was so resistant. And I think that's probably what took me so long, because I wanted that win. I wanted to do it the way I had always done everything in the past, but it didn't work. It just didn't work. He didn't come back. He did not call me. He did not contact me in any way.
When you look back at doing that style of affirmation and you're standing here today, what do you think when you look back?
I feel for myself back then. I feel pity for myself back then. And it's empathy. Pity is the wrong word. I was so lost. Like, I felt like that person that was trying to get love, she didn't know how to be loved. Like, she didn't know how to feel love. And I knew I wasn't going to give up on figuring this out, but it took me years to understand like how to feel loved. Like, cause I grew up, and I remember even as a child, like growing up and not feeling secure, not feeling happy. I remember looking back at pictures of myself and I was not smiling in so many pictures in my childhood. And I think that was because, like, as I grew up, I never knew what really feeling love within meant and what that experience was like. And so I say this to everybody that's going through this, because I think so many people in this community don't have a problem with, like, there's two types of problems. I think there's the problem of people thinking like, this person hates me, and you just have to change your thoughts, which that's probably why those affirmation coaches probably will work for you, because you may already have a good self-concept and all you have to do is change your thoughts about, oh no, this person is interested in me. No, they do want to be with me. But for me, it wasn't that simple, because, and I think a lot of people that gravitate towards people like Agnes feel the same way, because, or are experiencing the same thing, not feel the same way, because when your self-concept is that bad, you are not going to you want to do the affirmations because you know that that's like the easy fix, or you think everybody else is doing it and that's working for them, or it's working for some people, but you don't know, like, are these people getting these people back and they're staying, or are they coming and going? Or, are you actually happy? Because you could get a person back, but still not feel good within yourself. And like, is that really what you want? And for me, this is my own choice and my own story. I didn't want that. I wanted the whole story. I wanted the full love, the full story. And I wanted to fully be that person that not only felt the love within, but had it really like hardcore reflecting back to me. Like fully, like, I choose you because you are so incredible and wonderful. And knowing that in myself first, you know what I mean? So, it took me a long time to really come to terms with and just like level with myself and understand that I needed to do that inner work. And that's sort of where I went all in that, like, kind of not pretty, but necessary work that Agnes was teaching me. So, yeah. And then, I can fast forward to like the end of, what's kind of happening now. But, and yes, like, I know I've been talking a lot. I don't know if there's anything else that like I'm leaving out, or anything you wanted to.
No, I'm just following, because it's so, it's like you're dissecting it so well. It's easy to understand. So no, I'm not going to jump in, because you're, the carpet's rolling out nicely.
Okay. Okay. So fast forward, I'm going to fast forward till now, because, because during that time I did a ton of self-work, and I did have to study the law a lot to really understand what I need to do and reinforce it. But when I was doing that self-love work, I was still getting a lot of resistance. Like in the beginning, like I didn't believe it. And I think that's where people also give up, because you may not feel a change right away. And like, that's the point where I think a lot of people go back and say, okay, oh, this is not working. I'm not seeing this person coming back right away. I don't feel any different. So the self-love doesn't work, And so I was like that too. That's why I think I also delayed myself, because I was like, okay, I'm doing this. It's not working. I'm not seeing it. I'm not feeling a difference. I still feel awful, and I'm not seeing him come back. So like, what am I doing wrong? So I kept thinking I'm doing something wrong, which again, if you believe in Neville's work and like the law of assumption, the more you think you're doing something wrong and you're focusing on these things, you are not doing the things that
Mm.
you need to do to make it work, which is say, you know what? No, I can figure this out. I am doing this right. I may feel this way, and feelings are okay. Like having negative feelings is a normal part of being a human being. Like it breaks my heart every time I watch, stories or people share stories about trying to like ignore their feelings, because that's what got me into trouble in the first place in my entire life. Like I repressed for years my feelings, because I thought that if I showed to the world that I was tough or that I was capable, that I was doing it right. And I was not doing it right at all. Like I learned through this whole process how to feel my feelings fully now. Like I am here in this place where I've learned that you can do the work and you can follow all these really like the gurus, like the stuff that Agnes teaches, like Neville and Joseph Murphy and all of these greats who have passed, and Abdullah, people that have passed on this really valuable information of being in the story that you want to create, and then loving the self in a way that you want to see reflected back, because everyone is you pushed out. Like understanding that doesn't mean that you don't feel what's going on in your body. Like there is a disconnect there. And I want to explain this, and hopefully I'll explain it clearly. But for me, that's where the inner child healing and the I think, like the awareness of self comes in, because when you start to understand that all these big feelings start coming up while you're in your story of healing, you don't know what to do with them. You think, okay, this is bad. Like people are thinking immediately, like, what do I do to stop this? And people start to, I think, affirm against the feelings. But to me, and I did that, I made that mistake too. But to me, what it is that I learned, that I have to sit with the feelings, because that is your inner child. That is your self. That is part of the self that you had created in the past that you're trying to dismantle. Now, the reason why you have to stay and be with those feelings is because you need to understand that you can't push away the thing that's within you. You have to only love it. The only way to heal that part of you that was broken, that experienced trauma, is to show it the one thing that it needed. It needs to be heard. It needs to be seen. It needs to come out, and it needs to be okay to do that. Like you need to allow that part of you to express itself in whatever way, and that be okay. And then still hold the thought and the feeling of, I can have what I want and still be this way. And that's to me where it clicked. And that all clicked for me, I would say this past summer. And that's sort of where we reconnected. So to kind of quickly go through the reconnection story, I reached out to him. Like he didn't reach out to me, but I was at this place where I was also like, I don't care if this works out anymore. I was just so tired. I didn't have everything figured out at that point yet. I still wasn't fully loving myself, but I was also just like, I was actually away for a weekend with some girlfriends. And I just remember being like, I'm lonely. And I was thinking of him, and I was like, you know what, let me just reach out to him and see how he's doing. And I just wrote, hey, I wrote to him and I was like, hey, like, how are you? And that was really it. It was not like I love you, I want to be with you. I just was like, let me just say hello. And I didn't really care if he wrote me back at that point or not, but he did. And so we started talking since that point. And it's been months since we started talking. And the reason why I share, like, I reached out to him was because, it doesn't have to work out that the person reaches out to you. Like it can work out that way. And I think a lot of people want it to, and that's fine. But for me, and I didn't realize this until later, because when I started really kind of dissecting my story about him and us and our relationship, was that I realized that I had created the story that I was not willing to be with somebody that had a child. And if I'm projecting out that story, he's picking up that story. So I knew, like I didn't think that at the time, because you kind of forget sometimes these stories that you create. And we talked about this, and because we've been going like super deep, and I'll get a little bit into like our conversation, but I was talking to him and I go, like, if you, because he's telling me like, I love you still. And I've loved you and I think about you every day. And I was like, whoa, like all this stuff hit me that he was telling me this. But he said to me, because I asked him, I was like, well, why didn't you ever reach out to me? Like, during the time when it was quiet. And that was maybe like about a 1.5 year mark. It was at some point during COVID that we stopped talking. And then it was about 1.5 years that we didn't talk. And I was like, why didn't you reach out to me at all? I was like, would you have reached out to me? And he actually was like, yeah, I would have. He's like, I was, he was working with a therapist on like the stuff that he had built up within him. And he's like, I knew I would have, I didn't yet, like I couldn't yet, I wasn't ready yet or something like that. And he also said that the other reason why was because he's like, I thought that I had too much baggage for you to want to be with me again. And that had to do with his child, like his kid. And I think because of the story that I was projecting out in some way or another, that translated to him because, I was so resistant to opening up my life to more love instead of shutting it down. Because to me, now that the way I look at this is so different. And, it's that I look at, the only thing that could come if things worked out with us is more love. Like him having a child does not mean I am any less loved because I'm providing myself with that love, and he's going to reflect that back to me. And like, what kind of person would I be if I didn't feel as if a child deserved all the love in the world from his biological parent? And then if I were in that child's life with this person, I mean, what kind of person would I be if I wasn't going to show an innocent being, a child, love and how to live with like only love in this world? Like that to me was really a grounding and like a true, like, come to Jesus moment, because I was like, what, like, and I wasn't that I didn't believe that, like that a child would deserve that. It's just that I believed, like I was so resistant to letting that love in. That's what it was. I thought that meant not receiving love, because if you look at it like he's going to give that love to, the part of his life that didn't include me, and I was jealous of that, that's me not being loved within myself and needing love to be shown to me because I am not feeling whole and complete and enough within myself. If I feel whole and complete and enough within myself, I'm not going to feel jealous of anyone else receiving love from him in his life. Like there's nothing that could take away from that now. And so, I got a little bit ahead into the story about that, but I just thought it was really important to share that. But we have gone into, like, since the point where we reconnected, we have gone into these deep, vulnerable conversations about love that we have not in the past ever before. And we would share that we loved each other in the past, but like, we're sharing about our trauma. We are sharing about our fears. He's sharing about what's going on in his life and what he's dealing with and what he's going through. But it's funny because there are things that happened that did actually end up working, that I did create, that I didn't really realize were happening behind the scenes, because I was, so focused on, what was going on in 3D instead of just believing that and trusting that things were going to work. Like, he moved back to the side of the country where I am. And it was his decision. Yeah. He decided to do that. Like,
was that just to do with work or also to do with you?
He didn't say the reason why. He said no, actually, that's not true. It didn't have to do with work. I thought his work is out where he used to live. Okay. So I didn't actually ask him that question. I will ask him that question, but I think it was, he said he wanted to be back. He wanted to be back where we were. Like he didn't say it in the way, like, I'm not going to speak for him, but I just, his family, his family is out there. I'm here. Yeah. And he's here, like now, but his job, like I never thought it would work. I never thought he would come back on this side of the country. I actually always thought I would have to go, if it worked out between us, that I would have to go out there, because
wow.
I thought that because of the type of work that he did, that I would have to be where he was because of the type of work I just thought it was not possible. I didn't think, I didn't think it was possible, but things happen as you start to change yourself, like as you start to change who you are. Like that floored me actually, because I just assumed he was still where he was. So when he told me he wanted to be back out here and that it was his decision, there was a part of me that knew it had to do with the fact that I was here as well. I won't take all of the, I won't take it all the credit, but it did have to do with me. And so, like, to get back to our conversation and what we're talking about now, what I've noticed since I've started doing self-love is he started he started sharing with me and being more vulnerable with me, because I started going, deep too. Like I didn't wait for him to start sharing things and giving and being open with me. I took the initiative to be open and loving with him by speaking my truth. Now, it wasn't like I didn't go and say, oh my God, I love you, and say all of these things and expect him to be like, oh, I love you. It was that I started being the person that I wanted to be in the relationship. Like I started acting like that person, even though we weren't in a relationship fully committed yet. Like I started being open with him. I started being vulnerable, even though I wasn't, hearing the exact thing that I wanted to hear back from him yet. And he would still tell me that he loved me, but it's like the hot, you experience that like transition phase, and like navigating that transition phase, I think is hard for people, because they think, oh my God, when the person comes back, sometimes they come back and they're fully conformed, but sometimes they come back and they're not fully conformed yet. Like sometimes they come back in a way where what's happening with me, where there's still this like muddy water of me having to sort through, loving myself more and giving myself the need, the things that I need, while also maintaining the story of things are all going to work out in the exact best way that they're supposed to. He is going to figure out the things that he needs to figure out in his life to make things work with us. And those are the stories now that I'm creating. And those are basically the affirmations that I am saying. The person that, he had as, a third party that he has the child with, that person, I intend for that person to have a wonderful life, and for that person to find the person that they love and deserve, and that treats them with the most, just so much love, because I would never want that person not to have that too. Like I want, it's so crazy how the more I've experienced self-love, the more I just want to give, and I want everybody to be loved. Like I'm ignoring the 3D in the sense that I'm aware that it exists. I'm aware that the situation is what it is right now, but I believe and I know that it's not going to stay that way. I'm 100% confident that it's going to shift, because what's true and right and most loving for every single one of us in this situation is to have the things that are going to make us all the most happy. And I know that they're in a situation where they're raising, a child and trying to be both good parents, but they don't want a relationship with each other. And there's just so much to that I won't get into, but there's just this whole desire now of, okay, like this is all starting. I can feel like the universe shifting things around, and I just have to allow for that to occur, because I'm intending the best for everyone here. And I am just letting things play out, because I know how the story is going to work out based on what I believe and see, and I'm projecting from my mind. And the other thing is that my intentions are pure. Like my intentions are not to manipulate the situation so he could just come back to me and neglect every responsibility in his life aside from me. No, I don't want that. I want him to be the man that I think he is and he should be in his life, while also coming to me and having the relationship with me
Yeah.
that we should have together, that we could build together on a strong foundation of true, truly loving each other and honoring each other. And, you know, that's really like the story. That's where we're at now. So we are at this place of fully communicating. We're at this place of fully diving into conversation and loving each other and communicating in love with each other and being honest and vulnerable. And now, like, if there's a day that goes by and I don't hear from him, like, I don't freak out about it. I know that he's going to contact me because I feel it within. I feel the love within myself.
Yeah.
And that's really like what, like that's really the whole story. And I know I kind of explained like the work that I did. But it just, the one thing I want to say is that, like, to go from being needy to being secure is probably one of the hardest things you'll ever do in your entire life. And I don't want to sugarcoat that, because you have to be so committed to things working out for you in a way that you are just willing to go through it. I mean, there are so many quotes that say, like, to get to the place where you want to be, the only way out is through. Like, you have to be willing to go through that to get to your happy ending. And the work that you do by, like, the awareness of your thoughts, like imagining the end, like for me, it was the inner child work. Oh, and the boundaries. Oh my God, the boundaries is a huge one, because now I'm like, that's fine. He's not showing up exactly in the way that I want. That's totally fine. I'm not going to manipulate the 3D. I don't need to do that work. I don't want to do that work. I want him to just show up the way I see him to show up. I see our lives being. So, like, if he's not showing up that way, that's no big deal. Like, I don't have to say, like, change for me, or you need to do these things, or you need to present yourself in this way. I'm just like, okay, that's fine. Like, he's not showing up, fine. You'll come back around.
Yes.
You're ready, which is another thing. Like, time is everybody's biggest enemy in this community. And I want you to understand that, like, time really does not matter. Like, I know that I'm still going to have the family that I want. I know that I can still have that with him. So why am I worrying about trying to manipulate him back before everything has fully conformed in the 3D so that I can have a kid? You know what I mean? Like, it's just not worth it to me. So, I've created this really strong boundary around, like, the first boundary was, like, I wanted to become happy within myself before I let a relationship fully become like a true part of my life, whether that would be been with him or if I chose to be with somebody else. Like, I knew I would not get into a relationship until I was fully happy within me. That was the first boundary. And that was a boundary for me. The next one was that I realized that I was like, okay, he and I have already had a relationship. We already know what that's like. When he comes back, like, I want to make sure that this relationship is something that he wants for the long term and that he is fully committed to that. So until he shows up that way, then I'm not going to worry about, like, whether or not he's fully showing up and committing to me with, roses and saying, here's a ring, like, we're going to get married right now. Like, that will happen in time. And so I'm just really setting these boundaries of what I want, but also that I am willing to allow the universe, which is you, I'm allowing it to come to me in the right time.
Yeah.
It's
but
like,
it's so great, T, because you've already got such a fantastic turnaround, because you can look back at what dismantled it. You can see the work you've done and how important it is, and that you get why this is the foundation to everything. And now, as he's turned around and come back, and you are now obviously building something together, there's still some things that are unfinished business, but you don't need to just go, right, you need to finish that and you need to get here, otherwise I'm not gonna, and you create all these drama conversations. You're in a real allowing state, and a surrendered and letting go state, and an unconditional loving state. And that's amazing. Because so few are there. That is the hardest, like you said, going from needy to secure is one of the hardest things. And
it was really hard. I'm not gonna lie, it
is.
was really hard.
It
It was really,
is.
really hard. And but I didn't give up on myself. That's the point. If you really love yourself and you really want something for your life to be different, you can absolutely do it, but you cannot give up on yourself. And,
Yeah,
the allowing and the letting go, oh my God,
I know.
it's
amazing, isn't
it
it?
is the most, oh, and you could hear it in my voice, because some people, I used to look at letting go as the worst. I was like, letting go sucks. Like, I don't want to let go. I don't want to not want this person.
Yeah.
No, it is the most beautiful feeling. Like, I have never felt
freedom.
so free. Yes. Oh my God. I have never felt so free and so loved and so like full of everything that I ever wanted and needed in the world, because it's there within me. Like, it's just mine and nobody can take it from me now. Like, nobody can take it away from me, because I did the work on me. And now I know when I do come back to those states of fear or anxiousness or longing, I know that that's my inner self, my inner being of fear. And that you could call it your inner child or your inner being, whatever you want to call it. But then at that point, you just nurture and you allow and you allow that feeling to be there, because that feeling wants to leave. It doesn't want to stay in your body. It wants to leave, but you can't ignore it. You cannot push it away. You have to nurture. And by nurturing, that is how it integrates with you, and it becomes just purely loved, and it feels secure and safe. And then you can then go out into the world and say, okay, you know what? I don't need him to show up for me exactly the way I'm intending in our future right in this moment now, and I can still be okay. And that's sort of where I'm at right now, because the way he's showing up is he's conforming, but I believe that, like, it's the most important thing is that you have to realize you're gonna see things change in time, and that's where you have to stand in your power, which is your love for yourself. Like, you and yes, you are you are a huge, this is why, like, I resonate so deeply with you, is like, you're the type of teacher who has done that, because you're in a relationship with a man you live on different sides of the world, like, and you maintain a love, because you don't need him to show up in a way that's like, okay, drop whatever's going on your side of the world and come live with me on my side of the world and do every single thing that I want. Like, no, you allow the love to be there, because it's like you're secure in who you are.
And it's true. It's true. And I know he's not my source and I'm not his. So we both know that. And it's, like, we've been together for 1 year and 8 months now without me going back to Australia. And it's like, wow, that's the longest we've been together because of the COVID situation. So I'm going back this weekend and it's the first time, but it's like, oh, you go and do what you need to do. I'm doing what I need to do, and I'll see him in a couple of months. So then we hop back on, and it's like it creates this fresh new, it's like a breeze that just goes through the relationship. You're so happy to see each other, but you've sustained your own self-love the whole time while you've been apart. So it's almost like when you finally cut the puppet strings with, I want you to be my source of love, and you get it so deeply that it comes from within, and that person is someone to overflow that to. Two givers, a relationship like that, it doesn't get better than that, because you are no longer being a drain on someone else.
Oh my gosh.
It's profound, the difference in the feeling of the relationship. It's profound. And you now know.
I never thought I would get here, but I knew oh my God, when I talked with you and then you would explain this, I was like, oh my God, I was so jealous back then, because I was like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do it. And it was so, and I think, and yes, you say this so many times, like, it's the hardest, it's the hardest work you'll ever do, but it's also the most fulfilling and the most rewarding work you'll ever do. The journey is the thing. It is the thing. It just, because now I look back and I'm like, wow, like, I can do this. Like, you feel so confident in yourself for getting to a place where you can give. Like, I mean, coming from a place where I thought love came from a person, it came from the outside, and like my sources of love like never fulfilled me, which is why I felt so empty. And like, I never had a problem like attracting love in. It was that I couldn't keep it because I could not be loved. And knowing now that I know how to cultivate it, it's just unbelievable. And now I've set like this amazing routine for myself where I work out every day. I meditate every day. I do yoga every day. I set time aside for the things and the people and the, you know, my charges, my responsibilities. Like I prioritize that. The work that I'm doing. Oh my God, I'm starting new work. I'm creating something very that's been near and dear to my heart for the, you know, I'm finally had the courage to go after that. And I'm putting that as a priority. I am prioritizing myself. I just decided, I was like, what is the person that I want to be in this relationship, you know, with this man? If, what, you know, I say if, but when that, you know, happens, and it's like, okay, like I gotta be, and I wanted to be that person now. Like I always knew that like there were things I wanted to achieve and accomplish in my life, but I had spent years figuring out how to manifest a freaking man back. And I spent all this time working on him instead of focusing on me and like, what are the ways that I can be the best version of myself when I have a relationship again with this person. And I just love him so much that it's like, I just want him to be happy, like no matter what. And like, that's where I just know that it's coming from a pure place, because I realized that none of the other things that I really cared about before actually matter anymore. None of those things
true.
None of those things are deal breakers for me anymore. And also like the time is not a deal breaker for me anymore, because I just know that I can have him. I know that we'll work things out. I just know, and it's like that knowing is something that is indescribable. Like it's just the best feeling in the world, but to get there.
But T, you've already like, it's adding on to what you've already created with him now. Like you've already got, it's almost like you got the base foundation concrete laid and it's hardened. And now you're building the layers, whether that's, you know, having children and having engagement, whatever. There's layers to it, but the work that you've done in the fact that he's swung around, you now are communicating daily. You tell each other you love each other, and you're talking about a lot of stuff from the past that you're both clearing separately. I mean, if that's not in place in the beginning, you can't really build a really strong relationship on top of no foundation. So you've already got the most incredible foundation. Now everything is just cream and cherry on the cake.
Exactly.
From this point, it's like so great. It's so great when you finally get that love is not over there. It's not over there. It's not over there. It's not over there. It's here. I've just never been good at getting into the state of love because no one showed me. No one taught me. So
exactly.
It's so good.
So good. Which is why I'm not needy for him to be like, okay, like this is the plan, and we're getting back together at this time, and we're getting engaged at this time, or whatever, you know, comes in our future. It's like, no, like I am actually enjoying, and yes, like I'm enjoying doing things with him that we never did before, which is these deep conversations. And it's just enough. Like it's just, is enough for me.
Isn't it great when it's wonderful. Enough?
It's enough. It's
because
just enough.
Before it's like, I'm not getting enough. I'm not getting enough. I want more, one more. You're like, you see a glimmer of it, and you just latch onto it.
Oh my God. It's like a drug. It's literally like a drug. Oh my God. It's like coming. And I gratefully never had an issue using substances during that time. It felt like what I would imagine coming off of a drug would be like.
I know you want to die, and you can't eat, you can't sleep, you just feel smashed. It's just it is. It's horrible. And I think a lot of people that are listening to you today will know how horrible it is, because they're, you know, if they're going to watch this kind of interview, they're usually at a crossroad with a specific person or an ex or something. And it hurts. We can't take that away from people. It cuts deep, and you feel like you're bleeding.
You feel like, I honestly felt like I didn't have any hope in any capacity, because I felt like if this is what life is meant to be like, I was like, I don't want to live this way. Like I didn't realize that there was a way to live other than this. Like I was so stuck. And this is why I wanted to share my story. This is why I want it, everybody. I want people to understand that, like, if you have been in that place where you are having panic attacks, where you are having nightmares, where you are so needy that you feel like you are doing literally everything that you can to try to get someone, trust me, you can do this. Like, if like I had the worst self-concept, I may sound like not like that now, but oh my God, I was horrible, like horrible. And I feel for that person so deeply now, because it's awful. But you can do it. Like, you can change your life. Like, it is possible. And I just don't want people to give up. I want to share this because I don't want people to give up on themselves.
That's so true. And I think if you do nothing else but the self-love work, that is the greatest magnet, I think, for someone coming back. Because Abraham Hicks has said it for years. If you feel unloved and unwanted, you are unloved and unwanted. And if you feel loved and wanted, you are loved and wanted. It really boils down to, how do I feel about the self, and how much love do I feel within myself? And Neville talks about it as states. So the state of love is the greatest magnet of all. So you could do nothing else. Forget all those techniques, forget all those different bits and pieces, and all you do is you practice. And I mean, Kamal Ravikant's story, where he did I Love Myself for 1 month and everything turned around in a month, shows you the power of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. It's so true.
So good. T, thank you so much for sharing it. You are so good at relaying the inside experience to outside words. You're a wordsmith. You really have got a skill with your words. You really do.
Thank you. And yes, thank you. I mean, I'm it's very important to me, because I remember when I was in this journey, like, I would look to Agnes's success stories, because she always had like the most, I felt like her success stories were the most in-depth, like the people that she would bring on. And I knew that I gravitated towards them because they set a good example for me of what to do and like how to do it, like step by step, you know what I mean? Like, and that's where I was like, well, okay, like if somebody helps me, like I want to help them, you know, learn how to do it. And I'm hopefully like, if I wasn't clear, please, like, you know, tell people, or, you know, anybody can comment, or if they have any questions for me, I'm more than happy to answer them if there was something that I left out or they have questions about. But I just wanted to give back, because it's just, to me, I don't know, like, I think sharing the love and passing it forward that's how the universe, this is why it's like, I understand now why you do the work that you do. Like, it's just, I understand everything now. It's like, the world just makes sense to me now. Like, it's like, you just give, give. And like, there's no need. I don't need anything back. Like, I don't want anything back.
Because
I just want to help people.
And the joy is in the giving. You know, it's like, it's just to get through something that was so challenging. And it's exactly the same for me. It's like, that's why doing the YouTubes, that's why getting people on to share their story. It's like, everybody says it in a slightly different way, because they live in different countries, because they have different expressions, because they have a different SP, because they have they're in a different age bracket, they're in a different culture. But the fact is, at the end of the day, we all want the same thing. It doesn't matter where we are, how old we are, our sexual preference, our color, our gender, whatever, none of that matters. We all just want to experience the feeling of lovedness. That's it.
Yes.
And we've sliced off all the dead branches of where we've looked for it, that we didn't get it. And you end up with this beautiful trimmed tree, which is, it comes from within. And you've shaved all the stuff, whether it's fictions or other people, or trying to demand or manipulate or force or control, or you need to give it to me, whatever. You've shaved all that off you over the years.
It's so true.
That little thing.
Oh my gosh.
It's
so true. And also, like, you're like, is this branch going to work? Is this manipulative tactic going to work? Oh, let me try this one. Let me shave this branch a little bit more and see if this works. Cause you just are like, I refuse to go to the trunk. I refuse to go to the trunk. I refuse, which is you, which is like the self, because, you know, and like, it's just,
that's so true. And you get there, you keep trying, and it eventually, there's no more stones to overturn. You've done them.
Yep. That's what happened to me. Because I was so stubborn. I was like, no, I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to figure it out an easier way. I'm going to take the easy path. Nope. None of that worked for me. And I'm going to tell everybody now, like, if you want a relationship that's going to last, like what Agnes has, and like what I'm developing in my life, like, you have to work on yourself. There's no way around it. There's just no way around it, because you could shave off all those branches on the tree, but if the roots are corrupt, if the roots are rotting, like, the tree's going to die. You don't want that tree. You want a tree with solid roots. Like, you want a tree that has a good foundation, which and yes, preaches on this channel, and I preach it now. I am fully converted, like, fully self-love queen, and I will never stop. That's the other thing too.
I know, but
I'll never stop.
It's like, you don't even have to think, oh, I got to do my self-love today. You just go, oh, I'm going to exercise, and then I feel good. And then I'm going to have my smoothie, and then I'm going to lay down, do my meditation. And then I'm going to go to work and see if I can give a bit there, and see what I can give to my workplace, rather than being disgruntled about what I'm not getting. And it's like your whole world just transforms, because your vantage point is now, you've stopped trying to get everywhere you go.
Exactly.
Changes everything.
Exactly. It's just, the entire, your whole world. It's like, I think Wayne Dyer says, when you look at things differently, the things that you look at change, or he says it in some way like that. Yes. The late and great, he's a phenomenal man, but, it does. When you start to change the way you look at the world, everything changes. And also, like, when you change the way you interact with the world, everyone is you pushed out. That's probably my favorite thing, you know, persisting in the right way, not persisting in affirm, but persisting in, no, I choose to feel loved. I will figure this out. I choose to feel loved. I will figure this out. And then everyone is you pushed out. Who is the person that I want to be in this relationship? Who do I want to be? Do I want to be the person that I'm putting this person on a pedestal, and I'm feeling second best, and I'm feeling not loved, and you know, I'm letting my side of the street not be swept, like Agnes says, like I'm not working out. I feel bad about my body because I'm not feeling physically well, or I'm not eating right, or I'm not giving myself the sleep that I need. Like, I'm even one of the other boundaries is, you know, when we're talking, I'm stopping talking at 10:30. Like, if it's late, I'm saying to him, you know, okay, or I just stop talking. Like, I'm going to bed, you know, we don't need to continue talking.
Well, it was another day tomorrow. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's just like setting these little and large, small and big boundaries, but also not just for the person, but for yourself. Like, what do you want? Like, what do you want in your own life? Like, start doing that, becoming that person now. Like, be that person that you want in the relationship. If there's something that you're holding off on because you're doing affirmations to get your person back, stop that, because you know, do the thing for you, because everyone is you pushed out. Like, if you're not being that person, you're denying yourself, you're denying your own inner desires. And that's where you're going. That's where I went wrong. I don't want to, you know, that's what I know it, because now I realize now, oh my God, I was just completely putting, even in manifesting him back, I've had him on a pedestal, and I was manifesting in that kind of sick way, because I was thinking that's how you do it, instead of thinking, okay, you know what? Like, if I'm going to really understand Neville properly, it's, you know, understanding that if he's me pushed out, what kind of person do I need to be to have the relationship that I want? Is it a person that accepts like crumbs? No. Is it a person that accepts like, oh, like, I'm, you know, gonna, you know, stay up all night, affirming all night because I worked all day just to get him back? No, like, that's not loving yourself. No, that's not prioritizing you. How can somebody prioritize you if you're being needy and putting them on a pedestal?
And then you're exhausted. I hear a lot of I'm exhausted, but it's like, because you're doing too much LOA or Neville or whatever.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the energy of exhaustion is highly negative. It's I want someone to look after me because I haven't done a good job myself.
Yeah.
So you got to deal with not pushing yourself so the battery drains down to zero. Once you hit about 50%, that's when you go, okay, the warning light's coming on at 50% now, which means I haven't hit exhaustion. Let me build back up so I don't go further down. So you drop less low before you course correct, and then you can maintain where you don't have these big crying fits or you bursts of anger or all this stuff, because you don't let yourself get to where you've pushed yourself to the limit.
Yeah.
Because you've had better self-respect, self-love, self-respect, self-care. So yeah.
Exactly.
Brilliant.
Yay.
So good. Thank you, T. I'm going to put down. Yeah, I'm just blown away. And if you want to come when you've sorted out your next wonderful adventure thing that you said about what you're working on, and you want to come and share that, next success story when the timing's right, we're more than happy to hear from you again, because it's always good to hear when people share their relationship success story and their self-love success story first, then the relationship success story. Then the third thing is all the other wonderful things that people are doing. So, but in the meantime, I'm going to put the things you talked about down below: the self-love success stories playlist, the inner child playlist, the everyone's you pushed out playlist. All of these things have helped you. And I think it's so good to just keep remembering that these are the foundations. I mean, you can meditate and do things in the silence if you want, but for those of you that need a little bit of guidance and a little bit of help, hearing other people's way of doing things in the self-love success stories, I think is really helpful. Yeah. So thank you, my lovely. Thank you.
Thank you, Agnes. It's always a pleasure talking with you.
Likewise. That was so good. Do you want to just say goodbye to everyone? Then I will, and then we'll talk. We'll say goodbye in private.
Oh, I love all of you out in this community, because, I am one of you, and I want you all to have the best, and I want you all to feel loved. So don't give up on yourself. Okay. Yeah. Don't give up.
That's it. That's it. Thank you, T. And yes, I second that. If you do the self-love work and you make that the most important thing, all this other stuff falls into place. It just does, because we are energetic in how we relate to the world. So the better your energy, the better you are within you, everything goes right for you. Everything is always working out for me. You will experience that.
Yes.
So I'm going to say
wonderful.
Yeah. So I will see you all in the next interview or YouTube. Until you stay here, and we will say goodbye in private. Bye, everyone. Hope you enjoyed that beautiful story.